Hey guys.
Hey guys.
So this is the second one that we're doing, and this is on Saint Joan of Arc. So tell us a little bit about the history background of Saint Joan of Arc.
Well, St. Joan of Arc was a teenage saint. I think she was like 17 when France got in this. I'm horrible with history. Do you know the history? It was
Yeah.
in a muddle with England.
Yeah. So England essentially overran France, and they took over it, and they were slowly conquering it more and more. And so essentially they were being invaded and conquered.
And Joan was from France. And when she was a teenager, um, she she started to hear from God that He wanted her to like lead armies and deliver France from England.
Yeah.
And the neat thing about her is that not only did she lead those armies and not only did they triumph, but I mean, she's a 17-year-old girl leading a bunch of rough men, and they listened to her because she was so compelling. And that came out of a courage that she had that was completely beyond human capacity.
Yeah.
And what I love about that example is not that, like, I think I. She's imitatable not because most of us will lead armies, but because in wherever we are in life, if we're being called to do it, we will be given the courage by God to do it, no matter how big and scary it looks. And like all accounts of her in those moments when she was in armies, is she was just completely calm, and she had better command of her emotions and 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 her wisdom than like anybody in the army did.
Yeah.
But it's just neat just to imagine how like even in the end she was martyred, she was burned at the stake. Even then she was calm and dignified, and I think it's beautiful how much, if we're doing what God has asked us to do, He gives us so much courage that no thing that He's asking of us is harder than anything else.
Than what we can do.
Than what we can do.
And I think it's interesting to know, and correct me if I'm wrong, we can edit this out. But I am very confident, as I remember it, Joan of Arc, she was leading the charge. So it's not the sort of command where she was hanging out in like the back. She was in the middle of the fighting. She was there in the midst of it, as a woman, not having combat training. She didn't know how to fight, and actually she didn't fight. She literally just led them. She literally just said, let's go. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to fight, but this is where God wants me, so I'm going to go. And I think it's worth recognizing that France was losing. They were getting whooped. And it was like every single battle France was losing against this invading force from England. And it was not until Joan of Arc took over that they started winning. And they eventually were able to kick the British, the English out of their country. Once this 17-year-old girl took over, that's when they started winning. So it's not like, she took over this, like, army that had it all together. It was a bunch of bums that were getting whooped.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's cool.
I think that is cool.
So the thing that I think inspires you seems to be her courage and composure in the midst of it all.
Yeah, and just the trust that she had in God in the area that He was asking her to do. She would not have been that way if she was like off following her own desires, if they didn't line up with what she was made to do. So, and she even said, I am not afraid, I am born to do this. Which, again, like, she wasn't afraid because she was specially equipped for that task.
Yeah.
And so, even if things are scary, but we know God's asking us to do them, then we can know that He will provide the courage and the strength to do it in a very tangible way. Like, we can notice.
Yeah, and I think she's inspiring too because I don't know if she was from some like minor nobility.
No, she was a peasant.
Yeah, so she was a peasant. So here's this peasant teenage girl going up to the generals and leaders of the French army that are already losing and saying, God wants you to put me in charge. And that's the sort of thing that it doesn't happen unless God calls us to it. But it also doesn't happen if we're not willing to take the risk and be bold and say, God has a plan for me, and I'm willing to step out in faith and trust to live that out.
Mm-hmm.
And God has that for each of us. God has a plan for each of you guys. He's got a plan for both of us, that He wants to do something through us that isn't something that we can do on our own power, but it's something that He wants to do through us.
Mm-hmm.
So, St. Joan of Arc, again, of Arc is where she's from. So consider choosing her as your confirmation saint. And you can, if you're a boy, you can choose a girl. If you're a girl, you can choose a boy. That's just
you should start that part over because she's not from Arc.
She's not from Arc?
No.
What's the of Arc?
I have no idea, but she was not from Arc. So.
Okay, she wasn't from Arc. I'm not taking that out.
Okay.
So yeah, but just to say, like, you can choose somebody of the opposite gender to be your confirmation saint. Because essentially what you're saying is, this is the person that I want praying for me. This is the person who inspires me. This is the person whose example I want to follow. And that doesn't have to be somebody of our own gender or even of our own vocation in life.
Mm-hmm.
So, sweet. St. Joan of Arc.
St. Joan of Arc.
Bye, guys.